my fellow freedom lovers, sovereign thinkers. Thank you for tuning in to the LLP podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful swampy Mango, South Florida. And today's date is Friday, October 30th, 2020. Yeah, I've been looking at the article that was written by Glenn Greenwald. And all those prostitutes refused to publish it. What a bunch of cowards, including the other co-founders from The Intercept. It proves one thing: you're nothing more than bend over bobs to the New World Order or corporate technocrats. Congratulations. Great role models. All the chaos and elections, pure insanity, people wigging out, people to leave the country. Please. Here's the thing, folks. Like I said before on my Instagram, rights cannot be abolished or altered. Governments can. That's in the United States. We all got natural rights. Don't let these dingbats, scumbags, tell you any different. So, I'm going to do just a couple of things here. I'm looking through some of the stuff, but sharing some videos, and it's pretty damn cool. But this is what Brandon Smith has to say about the presidency here. A Biden presidency will mean a faster collapse in the U.S. So this is what he has to say here. In early 2020 is perhaps the most bizarre affair in modern American history, not since the post-Civil War turmoil of Reconstruction and the election of the 1876, when the nation was divided completely down to ideological lines. Questions of states' rights versus federal power were at the forefront, and the presence of federal troops in the South was a primary voting concern. The Democrats at the time were the party of the South and the Confederacy. The Republicans were the party of the Union. Though they had lost the war, Southerners were finding ways to strike back during the election. With the Republican Party suffering from corruption allegations and public sentiment shifting against the federal occupation, the Democrats were gaining massive ground, and a Democratic sweep was thought to be imminent. However, there were reports of ballot box fraud on both sides of the aisle. In many voting districts, the counted number of votes exceeded the number of people, often on the side of the Republicans. And during that time, folks, the Republicans were considered the defected Whig Party. All right, so just to let you folks know, in the original Republican Party started by Thomas Jefferson, and then they became the Democrats later on. Republican Party, Democratic Republican, and then became the Democrats. Okay, so those are the facts. Go make. Yeah. So let's just see what it has to say here with the Republic suffering from corruption allegation. Like I already said that. All right. So it says here, Republicans sought to challenge poll results and closely contested to the state, stop the Democrats and former Confederates from taking political power, a situation they considered to be a national disaster. Yeah, all hell breaks loose in these areas, right? So as it reads here, I will say this, that election became a stalemate of legal battles and fraud investigations. Ultimately, a deal was struck. The Republicans would take the White House in an exchange. Sorry about that. In exchange, the federal troops would be removed from the South. The Republicans knew that voting from the other side would be exposed, and that another civil war could erupt in response. Ultimately, the votes did not matter in the case of a contested election. What mattered was which outcome was the most convenient for stability at the time, and the election result was a mover to that end. Okay, so yes, there was a lot of chaos even back then, folks. That's right. So one moment here, I'm trying to grab something. So I got it out. But yeah, there's a lot of interesting stuff during that time. Remember, history does repeat itself, correct? So there's a special note here. If you try to learn about the 1876 election, I recommend searching for articles and books that are more than 5 to 10 years old. Anything written the past few years on the subject is rifled with spin and disinformation. check this article from Time magazine and try to swim through propaganda. So, in other words, observe responsibly. The part where they attempt to explain why Democrats used to be the party of the Confederacy is especially hilarious. Basically, the Democrats of the past were more like the racist Republicans of today. The communist penchant for rewriting history is on full display. So don't even fall for face value, okay? Today we have a different dynamic, which outcome will lead to the biggest disaster and who will take the blame. In contrast to 1876, I believe that in 2020 the elites are seeking to increase the level of instability, not calm the waters. Mainstream media has launched a massive fear campaign hinting at a potential contested election on both sides of the aisle and accusing the other of encouraging ballot fraud. I have no doubt that whichever way the election goes, millions of Americans will refuse to accept the results. To be clear, I don't really view modern elections from the perspective of winning and losing. It's hard for me to say exactly what is going on behind the curtain in 1876, but today I think it's foolish to engage in the election analysis without first accepting the reality that the game is rigged. I'll be back in a moment. Yep, looks like a little fumble here. So I'm doing it right now. So yes, of course it's rigged. Biden's a full-blown globalist and is proud of it. Of course. See, remember there's an article they did on the New York Times, How I Learned to Love the New World Order. That's Joe Biden. Trump is surrounded by globalists and banking elites in his cabinet. Don't forget, Sheldon Adelson's his main sugar daddy. In other words, financial supporter. That's in 2016. Regardless of who loses, the elites win. The only question I am here to ask is which candidate serves the globalist agendas most effectively right now. My original prediction for the 2020 election this past summer was White House will go to Donald Trump, but under sharply contested conditions. I predict that Trump's win in 2016 based on the premises that the establishment needed a conservative scapegoat for the impending collapse of the U.S. economy. As we know it, along with civil unrest and calamity this event would inspire. I stated unequivocally on numerous occasions that Trump would preside over America's rapid decline, that conservative ideas and principles would be blamed by extension. And behold, in 2020, that's exactly what's happening. With the pandemic and implosion of everything bubble now, is in full swing in the media, placing it all in the laps of conservatives. It is their fault. Let's go scapegoat them. And don't worry, it did the same thing with Barack Obama. We all know, many of us know he was another globalist bellboy too. Okay? Now, whether or not people believe this tripe is another matter. As it stands, the worst hit states economically are states controlled by leftist politicians that are enforcing draconian lockdown restrictions on the population. States run by conservatives are faring much better overall. The point is, which outcome serves the establishment narrative? Do the elites need Trump in office longer in order to crash the system completely on his watch? I believe this is the case. Like Clinton, Biden represents one of the worst possible candidates that could have been chosen as an opponent for Trump if they intended to remove Trump from Oval Office. His odd mental breaks, embarrassing gas, his habit of being creepily overfamiliar with women and young girls, and his exposure to corruption through foreign ties makes him a poor contender. Many Democrats are very infuriated having him be nominated for their top guy in the Democratic Party. So, to be sure, Democrats and leftists will vote for him anyway, out of spite, but I have a hard time seeing him rallying a wide cross-section of Americans that will give him an edge. If the establishment wanted to be rid of Trump, they could have chosen better. But what if I'm wrong? A Biden presidency is forthcoming. What if ballots are rigged to one side, as they were in 1876? What if a contested election leads to an agreement in which Trump steps down? What would it mean to have a Biden in the White House? Well, the U.S. system as we know it is going to fall either way, at least in terms of the economy. There's a process that was initiated many years ago with the impetus of financial bubbles hitting disaster proportions in 2008. Nothing has improved since then. In fact, the central bank bailouts and stimulus measures only increase the likelihood of a collapse event by inflating corporate and national debt levels, which simultaneously diminishing the buying power of the dollar. The only difference between Trump and Biden in this regard is how fast the collapse will happen. With Trump on the crash will most likely happen slower and more methodically, as the establishment takes its time building the narrative that conservative ideas, nationalism, sovereignty movements, etc., cause a calamity because such philosophies are inherently selfish and destructive. Meaning, at least with Trump, we have a little more time to prepare for the inevitable. With Biden in office, the time frame changes completely and the crash must move faster. Why? Because the globalists cannot allow a Biden administration and by extension the globalists to be labeled as the culprits behind the crash. They will have to expedite the downturn in the early months of Biden's first term so that the media can claim the crisis is an after effect of the Trump presidency. Of course, we're always going to expect the mainstream garbage media to manifest like throw them a biscuit, throw them a dog bone, they all like run to, If Biden does enter the White House in 2021, expect a hard plunge in economic fundamentals almost immediately. Another factor of a Biden presidency will be a high probability of federally enforced pandemic lockdowns. Remember, in his long debate, he supports mandatory of people wearing the mask. Yep, pro-involuntary servitude. Forget about the state-by-state lockdown orders and nuisances. Biden will attempt a national lockdown mandate because he's held back by a need to appeal to a conservative and liberty-minded constituency like Trump is. Biden will go for broke, and the economy will take another massive hit as businesses go into bankruptcy at breakneck speed. And again, this will have to be implemented quickly so that Trump and conservatives can be blamed. They will claim harsh lockdowns have to be pursued because conservatives refuse to accept them during the early stages of the pandemic. Furthermore, it is obvious that a second term, Trump term, will be used as an invitation for mass demonstrations and rise behind extremist leftists, but this threat doesn't go away with Biden in office. Actually, the rise may become worse under Biden. Social justice cult will see Biden as malleable and easily controlled by a political figure who will do their bidding. Biden will placate the hard left, not because he fears them, but because he has a role to play in this great kabuki theater, and it serves the interests of the globalist agenda at the moment. Finally, if the establishment puts Biden in the White House, it means they want national gun restrictions or outright confiscation with the first couple of years of his term. Biden's anti-Second Amendment views are hardly ambiguous. With Trump, the chances of a gun grab are much slimmer, though he was voiced support for red flag laws in the past. Under Biden, the gun grab will be swift. This threat, along with level 4 lockdowns on a national level, would elicit the only logical response left for conservatives: armed rebellion. I don't think this is what the globalists want at this point in time. I don't think they have the capacity to handle it, and I don't think they will be able to get a majority of law enforcement and the military to go along with such policies. This is why I continue to believe they prefer Trump in office, as they will use the economic decline and the failure of conservative policies as a false rationale for the global reset the elite seems to be so excited about. Be warned, however, that if Biden ends up in office, this should be treated as a warning sign that a high-speed collapse is on the way. I have to agree with Mr. Smith for sure. This will be extremely treacherous for everyone. Even the ones that endorsed them. Remember, here's one thing, folks. In the United States, when we pick a president, it's going to the electoral college. It's never been a direct vote. That's why you always have to pay attention thoroughly. And I recommend everyone to start looking at Mr. Biden's track record. It is very anti-liberty. The man is nothing more than a globalist crap bag of wind. Sorry to say it that way, but I learned from him. And I'm not telling everyone that, hey, I'm a Trump lover myself, but they love scapegoating him for everything, and that is very deviously treacherous. So you have to always examine these areas thoroughly. The biggest mistake is, what really gets me the most is these faction movements. You got the Trump lovers and the haters. I'm not going bashing Trump supporters as a whole. There's some very good people out there I can chat with. You got the ones he does no wrong. That's the abominable. You got the haters. That's a big distraction. If he farts, he'll make a big scene about it. See, the order wants this. The order wants us divided because they think we're nothing more than useful eaters. Not useful eaters. I'll say, wasteoids. Okay? Useless eaters. Wasteoids. They don't give a damn about any of us. And now we see with this whole pandemic, COVID-19 ordeal, same perimeters or parallels on September 11th. I did a show on that as well. You should check it out. One area I got to tell people, stay vigilant. And the bottom line is this. Your rights can never be altered or abolished. Governments can. Read everything. State constitution is U.S. and state constitutions. And pay attention to the debt. Central banking is communist. Federal Reserve made Karl Marx climax in his grave. And I'll leave it at that. All right, I'm going to do one more here. This one actually came out today from the New American. And this one here is entitled, CDC Admits No Conclusive Evidence Cloth Mask Work Against COVID. It is by Raven Calbo. And it came out yesterday. Wow, okay. And it says here, in recent reports of emerging infectious diseases, the U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, suggests what experts have stated all along. There is no conclusive evidence that cloth masks protect users from coronavirus, especially since most people do not use them correctly and do not keep them clean. The report states more research on cloth masks is needed to inform there is a use as an alternative to surgical mask respirators and even a shortage of high-demand situations. To knowledge, only one randomized control trial has been conducted to examine the efficacy of cloth masks in healthcare settings, and the results do not favor use of cloth masks. More randomized control trials should be conducted in community settings to take the efficacy of cloth masks against respiratory infections. There is an increasing evidence that cloth masks not only may be ineffective against stopping coronavirus transmission, but that they may actually increase the spread of the virus as well worsen other health conditions. A September report by the CDC found that more than 70% of COVID-19 positive patients contracted the virus in spite of faithful mask wearing while in public. Moreover, 14% of the patients who say they often wore masks were also infected. Meanwhile, just 4% of the COVID-19 patients said that they never wore a mask in 14 days before the onset of their illness. Likewise, CDC's October Journal report referenced a 2015 study on cloth mask efficacy efficacy. I always mispronounce these words here. Sorry about that, folks. That found the rates that were infections were consistently higher among those in the cloth mask group versus that of medical mask and control groups. The author of the study suggests that it was likely that cloth masks were problematic because they retained moisture and moisture and poor filtration. The CDC writes that study, this finding suggests that risk for infection was higher for those wearing cloth masks. The California Globe also observed that extensive randomized controlled trial RCT studies and meta-analysis reviews of those studies have shown that masks and respirators are ineffective against the spread of influenza-like illnesses and respiratory illnesses believed to be spread by droplet and aerosol particles. The Globe cited as an analyst of the 10 randomized control tests RCTs by the Center for Disease Control found no significant reduction in influenza transmission with the use of the face mask. There is limited evidence for their mask effectiveness in preventing influenza virus transmission. Studies found this applies to masks worn by the infected person for source of control when worn by unaffected persons. They concluded that there is no significant effect of face masks on transmission of laboratory-confirmed influenza, yet the CDC continues to recommend cloth masks for public use, even as the organization has flip-flopped of whether the virus is airborne. Their latest assertion is that airborne transmission is sometimes possible under special circumstances. However, some experts have been sounding the alarm on the widespread use of masks, asserting they may cause more harm than good. In fact, a group of doctors in Oklahoma is suing the Tulsa mayor and the Tulsa Health Department over city mask mandates, asserting masks cause healthy people to become sick. On the OSHA website, it states that employers should make employees work in an environment where they have less than 19.5% oxygen level, says Clayton Clark, one of the plaintiffs, and a mandate mask cause to dip below 19.5% oxygen level within 10 seconds of wearing a mask. So I don't want to make my healthy employees sick. Okay? Another plaintiff, Dr. James Meehan, MD, says he has been increasing patients with facial rashes as well as fungal and bacterial infection, as he heard from colleagues around the globe that bacterial pneumonia is on the rise. He asserted this increase stems directly from mask wearing. What might that be? Because untrained members of the public are wearing medical masks repeatedly in non-sterile fashion. They are becoming contaminated. Remember, these masks, that's what you have them for certain environments, okay? Non-sterile and all that. They're becoming contaminated. He said at an August press conference they are pulling them off of the car seat, off the rearview mirror, out of their pocket, from the countertop. They are reapplying a mask that should be worn fresh and sterile every single time. New research has shown that cloth masks may be increasing for aerosolization of SARS-CoV-2 virus in the environment, causing an increased transmission of this disease. He added, dentists have also reported an increase of oral hygiene issues, which they have dubbed mask mouth, while seeing inflammation of people's gums have been healthy forever, and cavities people have never had them before. It says Dr. Ramondy, a dentist and co-founder of One's Manhattan Dental. 50% of our patients are being impacted by this, so we decided to name it mask mouth after meth mouth. On the other hand, Sweden has declared virtual victory over the coronavirus, absent any draconian responses to pandemics such as mask mandates and lockdowns, opposite of herd immunity. Sweden has gone from being the country with the most infections in Europe to the safest one. Sweden's senior epidemiologist, Dr. Anders Tegnell, told Italian newspaper Corriere della Sera. The findings that have been produced through face masks are astonishingly weak, even though so many people around the world wear them. Tango states the European for Disease Control and Prevention confirmed experienced reduction in infection rates with just 12 cases per million, Summit News reports. The CDC reveals that just 6% of reported COVID-19 deaths came directly from the virus, while a whopping 94% of the deaths attributed to the coronavirus were from people who had 2 to 3 serious underlying conditions in addition to COVID-19. Interesting there. I have one of these face covers I checked out. It's breathable and all that, but always got to see things in a bigger picture. I'm never been a fan of wearing these masks anyway. When it comes to families and all that, yeah, I'll wear it if they're ill. That's not a problem. It's got to be voluntary, not mandatory. Some people have a cow and I say it's a valid contract. Some people may get offended. Who the hell cares? I'm looking at everyone else's health concerns as well. There's a big difference. People ever start looking at everything before jumping on some bandwagon. Even some of the anti-maskers, they have to know facts too. A lot of folks out use facts, but hey, breathing properly and all these other oral hygienic issues. So there's no conclusive these cloth masks can work against COVID-19. So I always prefer this. Always remain vigilant on your health. And of course you can use multiple things in here. Vitamin D, selenium, melatonin, or even NAC, which is nacetylcysteine, or cysteine, or beta-glucans, okay, and zinc, and garlic, vitamin A, antiviral herbs, okay, such as astragalus, green tea extracts, and glutathione may help, etc., etc. So what I'm going to be doing is adding a link for this, COVID 411, which is from the website called AllianceForNaturalHealth.org. Very good site, and I subscribe to them. I encourage everyone to check it out, so I'm going to leave that link on there. You can see it for yourselves. Good stuff, folks. Remember, every infection has an Achilles heel. And I'm still convinced it is a bioweapon. Well, when he did it in Wuhan, it was a great place to have it because high pollution. So, always be smarter than what they tell you. All right? So that is it. I thank everyone for listening. Plus, feel free to download and share through social media networks. If you have any questions, comments, and if you said something that's interesting you want to check out, whatever you do, please send your correspondence to the quorum. Furthermore, I'll leave the footnotes of these articles on my Spreaker page. You can email me, keep me at lookandluck3@gmail.com. Or if you're interested in Proton Mail account, I got one. Look number is 03@protonmail.com. And if you want to do a donation, you can hit me at paypal.me/LokiLuck3. And I'd like to thank the Downtown Saloon for having me do the show. The good people here located at 10 South New River Drive in the heart of Fort Lauderdale, right on the New River, south side on the Andrews Avenue Bridge, right near the county jail and the courthouse. Okay, I'll be north from there. Okay, so once again, thank you for your time. Plus, always remember that the demoniac resistance is up to the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Keep on, spread the love, and may your guardian spirits be with you.